Good morning.
We want
Good
to
morning.
introduce you to somebody very special to our hearts today, someone who already has his own very successful podcast called A Gentle Squeeze, who is absolutely fascinating to listen to. We've been having amazing conversations and we've just said, Phoenix, we need to have a conversation with you on Awaken Light Walkers. You are a walking beam of light and you are just emitting such light and energy from your heart. You are helping people on earth. But before we get into a conversation, I'll just for our viewers' sake, just love to share from our hearts and your heart some of the experiences that make you who you are in this lifetime, not from any egotistical perspective, but from a point of sharing, so that anyone listening is going, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I can relate to that. So I just want to read this list out with my specs on. So this is all the parts that actually represent Phoenix here, and amazing list. So you're known, and I love the fact that your first one is tea taster. That's so funny. Journalist, agronomist and agri-consultant, farmer, administration in a law firm, your carer, tour guide. And these are some of the projects that you have done or are part of. So counsellor for underprivileged children in New York, environmental studies teacher, water birth, which is what we decided we'd like to discuss with you today, is about water birth, especially with the dolphins. Interspecies communication, my radar went off with that one. Dolphin-assisted birth, which is today, mother-assisted birth, and your philosophy is spiritual healing using various energy streams from the cosmos, including dolphins, whales, and angelic beings. I was just like, beautiful. Wow. So may we just first welcome you, Phoenix. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that flattering introduction.
Wow, what worldly experiences you've had. Amazing.
Yes, I'm a curious person by nature, so I kind of went through life looking and doing different things, and anything that kind of caught my attention or something that I was thinking about, I tried to get my teeth into it, and then of course try to do it as completely as possible.
And I love how everything's sort of evolved for you. When we've talked before, it's almost like, I mean, what a thrilling journey you're on. I mean, I just think some of the jobs I've had, I've just gone pretty 9 to 5 or 6 days a week, whatever. But you've had this very international experience and something that not many of us just get the opportunity to experience for ourselves. I mean, going out to Mexico and doing all the links with the whales and the dolphins and then the water birth with dolphin-assisted water births, but I love how it all seems to just evolve to the next level, and it feels like with your energy and listening to you, it feels like you've got this whole new level that's just almost in bud form, that there's a potential of a new way of being on earth for you. And with your background and experiences, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so exciting. But sorry, carry on.
No, just referring to, the international experience. I mean, I lots of it came through, obviously, with having a family, and the mother of my children also looking at different methods of gentle birthing, and water birthing came into the picture. And of course, then we discussed it. I was completely out of place and at sea in the beginning, until I, again, due to this natural curiosity, tried to get really involved with it, and then discovered that there's more and more to it. And of course, because we've had 3 children, each experience was directed very strongly in that direction. And we moved, from our firstborn, with a normal water birth experience, which was kind of more of an experiment, really, to actually eventually getting to know the person who would be shaping much of my life, our teacher, and walking, the path with him for a long time, learning about not only water birth but general human development, um, and how the universe perhaps is looks at us.
Wow.
Mm.
Would you like to share with us? Sorry, I got a little frog in my throat. Got a little dolphin in my throat. Would you share with us, all of us, about the dolphin birthing while I clear my throat?
How does that work?
Yeah, so dolphin birthing, probably dolphin-assisted birth is kind of how people would call it nowadays. And we were introduced to something like this about 20 years ago, or perhaps, yeah, around 20 years ago, when we first met our teacher, who's from Russia, and he had been doing dolphin-assisted birth for even longer than that, probably 10 years prior to that. So he kind of tried to evolve this concept of dolphin-assisted birth through various theories that he had. And I think it evolved basically from the theory of, say, water birth being an important aspect of developing the infant, where infant comes out of water and into water. And his theory as a scientist was, and this is the sort of scientific side, was that he kind of knew that out of the billions of neurons that exist in our brain, millions of them are destroyed just during the birthing process, because of the fact that the infant comes out from this cocoon, from this wonderfully kind of ensconced place, straight into this big bad world, and is hit with gravity. And it was interesting for him to just bring out that concept that water comes into water. And just telling you his story is when his daughter, his firstborn, I think it was in the early 60s, probably 1960 or 61, where she was told by the hospital in Russia that she's not going to survive. You go and bury her and do your christening ceremony and your baptism and so on. And he took her home and put her in water because she was premature, probably about 750 grams. In those days, that was a difficulty in any case. Put her in water and she kind of really developed. And at the same time, so he's gone through this process of water birth. Okay. At the same time, at the other end of the world, in the United States, there was a chap called Dr. John Lilly who was doing experiments. And he was doing experiments with completely different things. He was doing experiments with mind-altering drugs. And in those days, as the director of the national health in America, he had access to LSD and so on, before it got banned as an illegal substance. And this led him to experimenting with dolphins. And his experiments with dolphins were that dolphins are beings who have much more to give us than we believed beforehand. And his scientific training with dolphin was sometimes, not what we would call ideal. It would probably be called, animal, the SPCA would get involved with animal kind of molestation. He used to experiment with the dolphins, but then found that the dolphins could communicate and they had their own language and were beings. And of course, then with the brain the size of ours, they were kind of the water version of the human. And obviously then eventually finding out that there was this guy who was doing water birth, he kind of flew across and met my teacher in Russia and told him about the dolphins. And then they got together. And of course, my teacher in Russia said, well, if we are going to have birth in water, why do we need a midwife that's from land? If
Oh.
you say that dolphins are these beings that are enlightened, have empathy, have ethics, then that's the best way to do a water birth. They are doing water birth their whole life. They live in water but breathe air. So it's an amazing coming together for him, and said, well, I mean, it's only natural to begin this process of water birth helped by the dolphins. And of course, with the biosonar of the dolphins, which we know nowadays helps in curing. It's almost like a laser, and some people say it can cure cancers, it can cure traumas, and of course it's like a scan. So the dolphin can scan your body, but obviously it's not a scan just to look for food. It's an intelligent scan. It's a spiritual scan. So not only is the scan taking place, but the being that's doing the scan is understanding what is to be done in the situation. So that's where dolphin-assisted birth came. And of course, it's not easy. Dolphin-assisted birth doesn't mean, it's not easy to have birthing pains and then run away and go to a dolphin and say, help me. It has to be. So that's why dolphin-assisted birth exists, but in many forms. And one doesn't have to be physically with a dolphin at the time of birth to have a dolphin-assisted birth. I don't know if I'm making sense here.
How does it work then, Phoenix?
Well, one way it works is the physical, the physical contact. That means the pregnant woman, the mother is there and she has her pains, and she's with the dolphin, and the dolphin helps to release the pain. It gives strength to the infant that's going to be born. The infant is obviously born in water. The infant is obviously, in that case, then can be in the water for a longer period of time due to the help of the dolphin. But this doesn't take place like on an immediate situation. You can't say, oh, now I'm giving birth, I go to the dolphin and do it. I mean, the process begins, the birthing process in any case begins with conception, or probably even before conception. One doesn't just say, now I'm pregnant with 9 months and I'm going to run to a dolphin and give birth. I mean, you even before your conception, one is looking after oneself spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. And part of that looking after perhaps will lead you to a connection with dolphins. Perhaps it'll lead you with a physical connection with dolphins. And that's what we did eventually when we were pregnant with our firstborn and secondborn. We actually searched where we would go and meet the dolphins. So we did it with our firstborn, who was already born. So the preparation was for the secondborn, and the third. But we did search our dolphins. We did go and make connections with them. We did eventually have contact with dolphins in the Black Sea. We did have contacts with dolphins in Greece. We did have contacts with dolphins in the Pacific, in Mexico. So there were these contacts continuously going on, and there was this bond. And we did speak to dolphin people. We did find interaction and find out what was going on. It was just a learning process. So the idea is, and the way my teacher did it was, he had already established this contact with the dolphins in the Black Sea. And it's a spiritual connection. So eventually, of course, the dolphins know when the mother is coming and when the birthing is going to take place. So when the mother swims out into the Black Sea, the dolphins are there. Often, sometimes they're not. So, it's dolphin-assisted birth is not like a birth in a hospital that you go there, you kind of call a dolphin and say, hey, sort me out. It doesn't work like that. It's there or it's not. It depends on how the exchange of energy takes place. It depends on how that energy, the information transfer from you to the dolphin has been received. I mean, you can understand it in a way that I speak very rudimentary English, and then I'm trying to explain something to somebody that understands the language very well. And my message going to the dolphin is going to be coming across to him across these, miles and miles of ocean, or however far we are, is going to come across garbled and initially until he kind of gets the message. And it comes when it can kind of get that link, that connection, and it's difficult because these languages are not spoken languages. It's what you spoke about before: interspecies communication, non-verbal communication. Some people call it telepathy. So the birth assisted with dolphins is physical. It could be when you're there and you make that contact, and you go either to Hawaii or you go to Mexico. And of course, there's some people who would go to a dolphinarium. They don't exist anymore, mostly, and I hope it continues that way, because dolphins are just free beings. We don't need them to be enclosed. But there were situations which I've seen where the dolphin has actually come back, and helped, although it has been given its so-called freedom, So that's where I see the ethical aspects of a dolphin. So yes, so Helen, to answer your question, it's not only being physically present. I mean, I don't think that any of our children, we were physically present for the birth of our children with a dolphin present, but we did. The children did swim with dolphins and whales when they were in their mother's womb, when their mother swam with dolphins present. But they didn't want it to happen. They wanted it to happen in another way. So it did, And of course, later on after birth, we did have interactions again with whales and dolphins. But that's how the world works in their world.
Because that's what we got to remember, is that with dolphins, with all their connections and their higher resonances, it's not always about being right by your side. And I mean, that's what their whole sonar is about, is they can be miles and miles and miles away, and they are still signaling, they're still communicating, they're still sensing. So, I mean, you could have been 5 miles away in the birth, but they're still actually connected with you. And that is so profound. And of course, it's against our human logic. Our human logic is, no, they're not next to me, so they're not with me. But when we tap into our higher consciousness, our innate knowing, then we are all connected. And some of these souls that are coming in, I can just imagine, I mean, we talk a lot about all the different souls that come in, and they have an affinity to a certain place in the galaxies. So there are a lot of these souls who resonate with the vibration of the dolphins, who are divine beings from Sirius. So for them to be able to be greeted into the world, which I just feel is an incredible playground at the moment, for them to be greeted into physicality in the vibration and the resonance from the dolphins, from Sirius, from their home planet, up inverted commas, is such a beautiful gift. I mean, what a welcome. And just in some ways that others will go, well, this soul, I feel very drawn to give birth in a meadow of flowers. It could be that they've got a very angelic being who relates to earth energies. But obviously your boys, and you as well, have this calling with the energies from Sirius, with the dolphins, with the water, with the whole. I mean, we are so much of water. So it's just amazing. And just tuning into how you're describing it and visualizing how that could have been experienced, certainly both of us as mothers, it's very, very inspiring. And I don't think just watching a film of it would be any way possible to understand the full experience. You can't.
Well, they're definitely healers, aren't they, dolphins? Because they've healed lots of children with ADDH and autism, and I've read about lots of accounts where people have taken their loved ones to see the dolphins, and healing has taken place.
Yes, in fact, a couple of things here, and one of them is this healing aspect, which you mentioned, Helen, where my teacher and us, we do similar kind of things, or we used to, with this is past experiences with healing adults and children of various so-called incurable diseases in a dolphin scenario. And it's sometimes very difficult to understand. So I'm going to bring it right down to the physical plane, because that then will dovetail into what you said, Claire, as to how we kind of connect with the dolphins. And as I mentioned before, there are various planes, and you start with the physical plane, and then there's the mental plane and the emotional plane and the spiritual plane, and each of these can be further subdivided. So I'm just going down to the physical plane in terms of what you said, Helen, and the dolphin, its kind of whole being in many ways is to provide this support, okay, this help, this in any kind of traumatic situation. The dolphin is going to provide help, but the dolphin also will not provide help if it's not required. Okay, so this is just an experience. You can't just go and say, oh, it's really nice to meet you, I need your help, give me your help. It's not going to happen. But if there's a real situation, it will happen. So very often my teacher used to put, I would say, his patients, the people who are not well, under stress situations in the water with the dolphins. And then they came and said, hey, I don't want this happening, I'm going to help you. Wow. In fact, sometimes they even give him a slap, and those slaps really give you bruises. So I'm looking at now really the physical plane, the really scientific side of my teacher. And if you take the whole circle right around, and I know that he's a shaman as well, it's no different. There has to be a certain disconnect between your empathies and your natural necessity and capability to heal, because healing is not always love and flowers. Healing is sometimes tough, and I think you all know that going through a healing process, in whichever way you're looking at it, if it's a healing process right from within, then it often gets worse to get better. I mean, I think, Helen, you're a homeopath, you'll probably see that pretty often. So, yes. So even in these cases, trauma means getting rid of our issues from the inside, and it's not physical. At this level, physical and mental issues are connect. There's no difference between a physical and mental issue or an emotional issue. At this level, they're all the same. So you've got to get rid of all these issues from within. And just connecting it to the birth, it's anyone who is born, according to this philosophy, if you believe in this philosophy, is that anyone who's born has already come from a place of trauma, from the past birth and the past and how many ever births and lifetime that you want to go back, there has been some sort of trauma. So as we come into being, each one coming in completely separate from the other, completely, say, bespoke. It's me. And I have a different time to be here as you do, and I have a different trauma to deal with as you do. And there's never going to be a comparison between you and me from that point of view. So there's never going to be a better and a worse, because where are you going to start this comparison? We are coming from different places. We're coming from different ages, from different lifetimes. So when we are born, in some way or the other, all of us have a handicap. Now, putting it really simplistically, one of the handicaps that we have is that we can't walk, for example, okay, when we are born. One of the handicaps is we can't speak, and so on. So these are just, you take it as it's said, we can't walk, we can't speak, this is the handicap. And if you look a little further down the road and you look at, say, Buddha, who was born probably with less handicaps because it was said and documented that he took 7 steps when he was born. So I don't know how to believe it or not believe it. I'm just trying to put something into perspective. Mm-hmm. So now bringing the dolphins into it, if we have this handicap, and if we are born, and if we assume that when we're born with a handicap, and we say that birthing into water is going to relieve us of so many deaths, of so many millions of cells, just saying one thing. And we say that actually developing in water is much faster because you're not dealing with gravity. And we say that dolphins are spiritual beings, and look at the way they've developed because they've lived their lives in water. And you connect all the dots, then it's a no-brainer eventually. And you say, yeah, then the dolphin is going to be the one that is going to be by my side when my child comes into being with its handicap, and that's why we talk about disabilities and not disabilities. All of us are disabled in some way, it's right across the board, and very rightly, some are seen, some are not seen, some are normalized, but all of us have something or the other. And just to reduce that disability, we have the dolphin there. In the stress situation, which you see the baby is going through in birth, there is a stress situation. The dolphin is there to support and to get rid of perhaps some of those disabilities. And then it depends on how long you want to spend your time with the dolphin. The longer you spend, the more disabilities you're going to get rid of. I'm looking at a physical plane now. Dolphins, when they give birth, have their own midwives. Okay, so there are other dolphins around a female dolphin when she's giving birth. So that's already connecting the dots. If one looks at any of these things individually, if Dr. John Lilly hadn't met my teacher in Russia, there wouldn't have been this connect, Eventually, my teacher in Russia used the same situation to help many, many Russians who, because of the Stalinist regime, which transported huge cultures of people just to disconnect them all over Russia. So you find the people living in the cold places were suddenly sent to Crimea, to the south. And people who are living in the warm places were suddenly sent off to the tundra and to Siberia. And obviously having problems. So when he went to Siberia, he kind of suddenly found this Jewish community who was very, very having lots of difficulties, not being used to living in these conditions, and then got them to actually be helped by a beluga. I don't know if you know what a beluga is. A beluga is a white whale. They're completely white, and they are again marine mammals like dolphins, and they provided again the same kind of support because the beluga lives in waters all its life with -4 degrees or whatever, however cold that water is. So it knows how to deal with the cold. So now you're exposing somebody who has a problem with the cold to a being that has no problem with the cold. And if you believe what I've said before, then there's an obvious connect. And there's a help there. So you just transfer this whole concept to the birth concept. And you say, okay, my dolphin-assisted birth is not the 5 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours of my birth. It's actually part of my being. It's part of where I come from and part of where I'm going to. And if I'm accepting that, and if I accept that dolphins are like this, then maybe there's something there for me.
Wow.
Amazing.
So what did happen with the beluga? Just to step back just a moment. Did it make a positive difference to those that were struggling?
Yes, the whole community, in fact. There was a large community at those days. I don't know how many he said, but it made a huge difference. And just looking at, again, dolphin-assisted birth, and birth in water. And it's sometimes difficult to, when you really get down to the practical side of it. Now, how does it work? I mean, there's you as mothers know. I mean, you suddenly get your pains, and now you're expected to kind of swim in the sea and find a dolphin in that situation. I mean, that's not going to work, you know. So it's all part of a preparatory process. And I remember a small story where my ex-wife was in Italy at a hospital, giving teaching other midwives. This hospital was the largest hospital for water birth in Europe. It was in the mountains of Italy, and they had a kind of a 3-day seminar kind of thing where my wife was invited to teach other midwives about, you know, the concepts of midwifery and birth and so on. Well, I don't know, teach, just to give a small lecture on her experiences. And I think one of the things that stuck was I sat in that seminar. I was probably the only male in the room. The other males were the obstetricians and the gynecologists, which I find again silly because it's difficult, I think, for a male. So I mean, that's a topic. It's a separate topic. But what my ex-wife said was that the most important part of the birth is the preparation. It's not the birth itself. During this time of birth, there's nothing you can do. You've got to just sit back and kind of try and enjoy the process, you know. But the preparation, no matter how, the further back you go, the easier your birth becomes, the more spiritual your birth becomes. So you've got to prepare beforehand. And then, of course, there's the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual preparations. This kind of thing, you'll hear this from me, you know, constantly. Your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. In this case, the preparation has to be there. And in terms of physical preparation, you need to do your exercises to open up your pelvic area. Especially if it's your first child, you're not going to have a great birth anyway. So you need to do exercises because there's so many muscles there. It needs to be prepared. And the best way to prepare it is in water, you know. You do yoga, you do it in water. Now, these are just basic, very standard procedures. Now, one of the ladies, kind of a local midwife from the mountains of Italy, said, our girls, they don't do any preparation, they come in and give birth. Now, it's very interesting that their girls are working on farms, they're walking up and down the mountain, they're doing all sorts of activities right up to birth. That is a preparation.
Yeah.
Obviously, we are sitting in a city, we're leading a relatively sedentary existence. So we are not going to be managing to do that preparation. Their preparation is not only immediate and physical, but it's also genetics. They've been doing it since they were born. They're to emulate here. And again, if you extrapolate it to dolphins, there's a preparation involved there. You need to prepare. You need to prepare physically. You need to prepare mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And to come back to what you said about, you know, the spiritual connection with Sirius and so on, my teacher told me, he says that one has to have a strong house to be able to receive even stronger spiritual messages. And your strong house is your body. So you need to become spiritually
clever.
So what we do is, whether it's dolphin-assisted birth or whether it's other kinds of birth, initially concentrate on the physical, which will lead to the spiritual, but it's a long process. I mean, we always want to do things really quickly. And especially case in point, you know, about, say, the issues we are facing today about, say, the COVID virus, the coronavirus, where everything has to be done like in a short space of time, whether it's the research to produce something, whether it is making a decision, whether it is looking at, you know, any kind of problematic issues that arrive. We've got a kind of a time frame. No, it has to be within this time and that's it. Not looking at it on a long term. We're not even allowing ourselves to discuss, have a platform to discuss these things. Most of these things, and if we look at various lifetimes, then what we are now is, our lifetime is really short term. And now we're making it even short with saying, let's figure it out, within a space of a few months. I mean, that's just a blip. So it's the same thing with dolphin-assisted birth and attracting dolphins and being with them. It's a long process, and you will only know much later. So children who've been with dolphins, who've had dolphin-assisted births, I've seen those children now at the age of 20. They started with huge physical activity. The only thing they were doing were kind of exercises, more or less. Today, they're musicians. Today, they're artists. Today, they're creative people. Today, they're spiritual beings.
Wow.
And that's a transition. But we wait 20 years to see the results of this, don't we? Not a year and say, oh, he's now, a football champion, a rugby champion, and that's what he's going to be, No, that's his physical side. Let's wait,
Yeah.
Let's wait what happens. Oh, he's a mass of muscle. He's very athletic. Yeah, that's all very well, but that's what's going to be his house or her house, to be able to imbibe and be, to imbibe these spiritual messages that you were talking about from Sirius, for example, to be able to exchange. Some people have it already. Some people are ethereal beings. And again, I mean, I'm not, talking about each individual. As I said in the beginning, each one of us is different. So some of us are already born into as ether, as it were. And that makes it easier for that person to have a connect.
Wow. I mean, what you've just said there is just triggering all within me. Gosh, can you imagine that these beautiful divine beings who've incarnated in this lifetime with such strong connections to Sirius, strong connections to the Sirius beings who are dolphins, and then they're sharing music, and then they're sharing art forms from that resonance. It's just mind-blowingly exciting. It's almost, I want to go and listen to see whether there's a resonance within that I recognize, that maybe there are other people who resonate with and feel drawn to dolphins, or whether they feel drawn to the Sirius, all the planets, and just to see whether that art, or hear whether that music really calls to them. Could you imagine that they're just bringing in those notes and those tones, and everything about the planet is coming onto Earth through these incredible beings?
I think you hit on a point also for me, that we are very busy and we don't have time to allow these processes, because everyone's being, led to believe they've got to do everything in a hurry and not create that space to allow, like even education, it forces every child to go through the same process and not even recognize any gifts that they have brought, to the world.
Yeah,
I agree with that completely. And just following the process and believing in yourself, and knowing that you're just different from the next person, and the next person is different, and we all have our own challenges and are not to be put into a box. And take everyone as seriously as they are, is the first instance. And again, relating it to dolphins or dolphin birth, I mean, what you said, Claire, was brought me to remember something that my teacher told me about connecting with the dolphins. And he said that the way he connects with the dolphins is he tried to kind of paint a picture, because it's difficult to explain the connection. And he tried to say that he connects to the cosmos, and the cosmos then connects to the dolphin. It's almost like a satellite in a planet, Sirius or something, and then coming down to the dolphin. And he said that's much faster way than actually being physically present next to a dolphin. The connection is still going to go up and come down, if I can kind of try and explain it, physically. And that brings us to obviously so many other questions. So if we're talking about, dolphin-assisted birth, First of all, we are talking about just what you said, Helen. Don't put yourself in a box. Dolphin-assisted birth may or may not be for you, number one. Number two, like you said, Claire, follow your heart. If it's there for you, you'll see it. And have an open mind. I'm just relating my experiences of what I believe, but I'm never, this is what it is to me. Perhaps it's what it is to both of you, part of it, but it's never all going to be, completely one. It's going to be, yeah, okay, I can take a little bit from there. The other person, I can take a little bit from there. And that's where we need to allow everyone to take their little bits. And that's the playfulness of a dolphin. A dolphin comes from a place of playfulness. Everything is done with play. And we don't do this with our children. So we can take even one aspect from there. This child who's born in the presence of dolphin energies, whether it's physical or spiritual, is going to have that sense of playfulness. And in the words of Buckminster Fuller, we adults do everything in their power to kind of destroy this playfulness in a child, And this is the playfulness that is going to get them to.
I was going to say that we're totally being encouraged nowadays, particularly since 2012, when we've ticked off the things that we wanted to do, needed to do. And now this whole time from 2012 onwards is about how would you like to live? You may still have some soul calling desires to express and experience, but the biggest thing is, how much fun would you like to have in this lifetime? How joyous can you make it in spite of what might be occurring outside you and around you? And that invitation of that playfulness from dolphins is really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that, Phoenix, because that is just that little nugget about playfulness, bliss and joy, and helping to magnify everyone's uniqueness. That's really, really special. Wow. Thank you.
It's interesting, and when one gets to know dolphins a little bit more, they actually go through. I mean, it's literally their whole life, being, like you said, enjoyable. I like that word joy, so enjoyable rather than fun, because that's more than fun. I would say fun is throwing sand in somebody's face and laughing, but enjoying something has a kind of a different quality to it,
Yeah, it's a higher vibration, isn't it? Joy.
Yeah, and it goes right inside and outside. Fun can be just on the outside, but joy is in every cell of your body and every atom of your energy.
That's right. And dolphins will show you that at every step of the way. We had, when we went to Mexico, there was, we met a very interesting, we met lots and lots of interesting people. One of them was a very, very attractive girl called Leticia, who had a wonderful son, the same age as our eldest son, who must have been 5 at that time. And she had given birth with dolphins. Okay, so physically with dolphins. And we encountered this doctor, Jose Luis, who was a gynecologist and obstetrician, but in his heart, I think he was half male and half female, or maybe 3/4 female and 1/4 male. He kind of embodied the mother, so he used everything in his power, except all his technical expertise as a doctor, to actually help this girl, have birth with dolphins. And, it was quite amazing. It was also, it's probably one of the only documented evidences in the world to exist, because my teacher in those days didn't document all his dolphin. Well, he did document them, but that's another story of how he kept his documentation. It was quite haphazard, but this documentation with this girl giving birth to her son Alioth with the dolphin is just mind blowing, because that's probably the only time I've actually on film seen that. I don't think that many people would have seen that. But of course, much later, we were approached by, I think, filmmakers who wanted to make a film on birth. And apparently it's now a film called The First Cry. And part of it is with this dolphin-assisted birth, which is part of that film. And with this girl and her son, the connection that they had with that midwife dolphin, I would say, was amazing. I mean, she came back the next day. The dolphin kind of gave this infant a ride on its belly, on the dolphin's belly, the child belly on dolphin's belly, took it around, 10, 15 minutes. The baby came back. And I met the child when it was 5 or 6 with my son. And later on, about a year back, I managed to get in touch, and she told me about what her son's doing, and just following this person who's actually been born with a dolphin. And then you see the difference. You see enlightenment. You see this special aura, which I saw even then. And this aspect is quite special. So when you ask me, what kind of, I mean, most people will say, what kind of person is this who would be born with a dolphin and go through all this process? I mean, is it this superhuman? What's the deal? Where does it happen? And having just by experience and looking at some of these people growing up, with the ones who have been born with, in the presence of dolphin energy, and then growing up, probably in the last 20 years, I would kind of try and compare it to one of the sculptures or the sculpture of Balzac von Rodin, which stands in the Museum of France. And anyone who's seen that will see that it is perfect in all ways, except that the proportions are a little bigger. So the statue of Balzac, the sculpture is, I think, 7 foot, just slightly bigger than, or maybe 6'8", and all the proportions are slightly bigger and slightly better, but it's still Balzac. So that's how I would try and make a kind of a comparison with how you won't recognize the dolphin child if you just see it. You'll recognize that there's something different, but you don't know what, But it's the within, like we're talking about, and we're talking about then as a culture, non-violence, promotion of peace, non-aggression. This is all this is due to traumas, these violence and aggression and so on. So when you release that trauma, then you get the opposite. You get promotion of peace, you get non-violence, you get community building. And that's what we're looking for anyway. So without trying to be presumptuous and telling everyone, if you want to build a great community and be communist, that everyone have a dolphin birth and we'll all be, great beings, without trying to actually say that,
no.
It'll be a nice thing to just reflect on things like this.
They're teachers, aren't they, dolphins?
Yes.
As probably many other beings on this planet are as well, but we're attracted to what is there to help us or our children.
Yes, and just looking at the analogy I used with Balzac, you look at the dolphin and the human analogy, it's the same thing. If you look at a dolphin skeleton and the brain and everything is just that little bigger and better, but it's the same thing. The dolphin infant, the skeleton is the same as a human, very, very similar. The brain sizes are very similar. The skeletal structure inside is very similar. The size is a little bigger. What they can do is just a little more. They can hold their breath, I don't know, for 7 minutes underwater or 8 minutes, maybe 10. Humans can hold their breaths 4 minutes, 5, maybe 6, There's some like Jacques Mayol, who was the first deep sea, deep diver, apnea diving, who did it for, I think, 7 minutes or something. So there's a correlation there. You know, I think there's a book of, again, my teacher met Jacques Mayol, and there's a book, I think, something to do with dolphin. I'm not sure, but Jacques Mayol's book again is related to the dolphin. And what are we? We are 95% water when we are born. We are maybe 80% or 85 when we die. So we are full of water, you know. I mean, that's so. All I'm trying to say is that there's always a connect somewhere. I mean, if I'm trying to connect this whole thing up and bring the water together, and why water birth, and why with dolphins, then there's one more connect that I'd like to bring in. That is Masaru Emoto. And I'm sure most people
have
yes,
heard of Dr. Emoto. Yay!
Yeah, which is water. And I was introduced to Emoto before all this happened by a friend of mine called Shizuko. And Shizuko knew Emoto in the old days, and this was, I think, 20, about 18 years ago. And, you know, again, a person who brings to light what water can do. And if you then say, we are 90% water or 80% water in our bodies, look what's happening then to us in our own body. And infants are even more water. And then you put water on top of water. I mean, there's so many things that are going on that like you said, Helen, that we don't take the time to sit and actually perhaps think about. And of course we don't have time, but sometimes it's maybe well worth it to just take a sit back, think of this, reflect, and maybe, you know, it'll help.
That's beautiful. And I'd just like to just add to anyone who hasn't come across Dr. Emoto's work is, so he had he wanted to check about the power of thoughts, because everything is energy, and so I'm just sort of simplifying their beautiful description, and forgive me if it's not 100%, but in principle they experimented on putting water in different jugs or jars and sending thought energy of different words. So the first one would be love, the second one might be hate, the third one might even be a phrase. It might actually be like, you know, I want to kill you. And so he wanted to see if this had any effect on the molecules of water. And then so they did it for a certain fixed period of time, the same thoughts on each individual one had their own specific word form and thought form. Then they froze the water and then put the molecules under the microscope, and they found the most incredible results, because what they discovered, and this is perfectly repeatable, it's not just a one-off that happened and never seen it again, this is always repeatable, is those that were words of hate and anger, the water molecules, first of all, the water seemed to discolor, and when they looked at the molecules under the microscope, they were actually really, really distorted. So they were discolored and distorted. And then with the ones of love and peace, they looked as beautiful as snowflakes, as intricate as snowflakes. And while we're sat here talking, on my side wall, I actually have the love one, which is actually, which I'm just going to lean up and get it, so that those who have not seen it can appreciate it. Framed as well. This is one I've prepared earlier. And that,
it's got a light on it.
Yeah, let's just see whether we can do it without the light on it. You can see the view of my garden. But that actual effect, that is the molecule of the water when it was frozen after having a fixed length of time with the word love. And they've done it with prayer as well. They've done water before prayer, and then split it into that one stayed as it was, and then the other half they did prayer on it, and it purified it. And it's just show the power of thought on water. And as you've just said, Phoenix, so much of us is water. And we get affected by the moons because of the water, in the same way the tides move with the power of the moon. And so, yes, I mean, everything to do with water is an incredibly important part of us and our lives and our existence.
Also, polluted water was really distorted crystalline effect, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, not a nice pattern. And it just makes you think about everything that we do and think and believe.
Yes. Yeah. But I do remember, I mean, one of the reasons I framed that, first of all, I actually, when I was going through my spiritual awakening in my 20s, just the shock of seeing the power of thought on water, I actually printed off the Dr. Emoto images of that showed the negative thoughts and positive thoughts, just to remind myself to say, what am I thinking, not just about others, but about myself? What am I doing to my own water molecules? What am I doing to the water molecules of other people? What am I doing to the water molecules in the world? So that it would just stop me saying something negative or thinking something negative, so that I could actually see and then consciously choose a positive thought. And it was nice visual reminder. I'm a visual learner, so, and I know you like audio, so but we're both visual learners, so that helped. A little tip there.
Yeah, water is, I mean, we say that it covers whatever 75% of the planet, but that's only surface area, you know, so it's much, much more, you know. Possibly everything is water, and even, you know, solid matter has water in it. So that's an integral part of our being. So I mean, I feel that I mean, water birth has been practiced before my teacher introduced it, you know, in 1962 to, you know, to the traditional world. I mean, it has been practiced by native peoples all over the world, you know, in many parts, the ones who are living not in salt water, by salt water, that's not by on the coast, but by rivers and so on. So there has been water birth that's been practiced, but there have been reasons why we've kind of moved away, and there are various theories behind it. And one theory says, I think it's what is it, the water ape or something like that. I'm not sure now, I've forgotten, but there's a theory which says that actually humans did come from water, lived in water. There are various reasons to show that we came from water, as opposed to, you know, say other hominids who were living outside water. One is our relative hairlessness, the way our nose is, you know, set on our face, and various other things, that we were actually driven onto land because of predators, you know, and then we evolved more and more on land. But there are still cases of mammals who are not dolphins who still give birth in water. The sea otter is one of them. It's an otter. It's generally, you know, but it gives birth in water, you know. There are various peoples, some of them across the world. One of them are the Moken in Thailand, who live in water, more or less. I mean, their eyes are, when they go underwater, they don't need any kind of glasses or goggles or anything. They can see as well as we can. They can see in water as well as we can on land, or we can with our goggles on. That's because they've been associated with water for so long. They kind of live, they can't live without water. They live on kind of stilts on top of water, but their life is just in water. In fact, there was a Swedish professor who eventually went there to do some research as how they had such good eyesight. And she brought her research back, and in fact used similar methods of getting people who had bad eyesight to actually try and focus underwater to improve their eyesight, with phenomenal results. So water is a big part of our existence, and birth is a big part of our existence. Dolphin energy is a big part of our existence, and that's where all three come together.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Beautiful. But I just want while we've been talking this whole time, this whole room has just drawn in these divine beings of the Sirius and Dolphin energies. They're not in Dolphin form, but they are in Sirius form, but they've got the connections with the divine beings incarnated in Dolphin form now. And it was so white. The whole room's been so white while you've been talking. And I could feel them. They came really, really close, almost like an oval between us and the camera, and you being there, and your energy and your presence in, because for us, you're in front of us, everyone else, we're side by side. And then gradually being talking, they've just been relaxing and relaxing. It's just so inspiring. Just, oh wow.
Yeah, it'll be nice to know what the messages that we are getting, what the messages they would give us, and then and what they would communicate sometimes, because that's sometimes so difficult, to how do I say, to interpret or to translate. I have these sometimes I kind of even now, if I try and kind of connect on a certain level, I do get messages, say the ones that I feel, it's a personal thing. I get it, say, from dolphins or from whales, and the difference that I see is that I think the connect with dolphins, because of the connect with humans and dolphins, is a little closer, that we are both more or less in our physical manifestation quite close to each other in our aspects, in outward and inward aspects, as opposed to whales, which are much more powerful source, and the messages that I get from whales is just so overwhelming that it's sometimes a physical blow, and you just, it's overpowering, and I don't seem to be able to receive those messages, whereas with the dolphin I can, receive messages and bring it across to myself or to my family a little easier. So I'm wondering, what your spiritual energies are kind of conveying.
Mine is immediately, I felt the same as Claire, that it's just full of love. The message is they're nature's healers, and they just bring love to everything, which cancels out any tension in the body, and then that allows healing, doesn't it? We're all so
Absolutely.
tense, aren't we? Well, even us sometimes. Through various things that make us tense. And we've just got, it's just about allowing the amazing healing process in nature, and tension blocks, gets in the way. I know when I had my first baby, I was so tense, and I had a terrible birth because, you're told all these awful stories. It's your first one. You don't know what's going to happen. We're not taught how to, we do a bit of, obviously a bit of breathing, they teach you, but not to truly relax and let go. And I ended up getting rushed by ambulance, and that made even more tension. Went into hospital, even more scary. And of course, my labour process slowed right down. So it was a 10-hour labour, very painful. And I learned with the second one, I was much more relaxed, played music, meditated, and had an hour and a half labour. So tension gets in the way, and I'm sure their dolphins' love would immediately, their presence and their healing energy would immediately dissolve any stress and tension, I would imagine. I don't know what your thoughts are. Dina?
Yes, I found similarly the same thing. I mean, when we were swimming with dolphins in the Black Sea, it was quite interesting actually, because we were directly in touch with the dolphins, and they were free to come and go as they pleased, within the area that we were. So I think they used to be, many decades ago, the same dolphins were kind of part of some sort of other clandestine operations, And when we went there, it was all disbanded, so they were free to come and go, but they're still going. So when we first swam, I know my then wife was expecting our second child, and he was born sometime in September, and this was about end of August, so it was about 15-20 days before his birth, and kind of just like the story I said, we were going to expecting to have the birth there. It didn't happen because that's not how it works, because our time was up and we had to come back, and then of course 2 days later there was this birth, but this is how it was supposed to happen, and that's a divine kind of reasoning which sometimes you get and sometimes you don't get, and there's no point in even pursuing that. It's just looking for the process. But in this process where we were swimming with dolphins, there was a whole group of us of about 20, and we had really exciting times. And my eldest son, who must have been, how old would it have been, about 2.5 or so at that time, was constantly in the water with the dolphins, and he could swim, of course, because he had also learned swimming through my teacher. But obviously swimming now in the sea, middle of nowhere, it's quite frightening. And suddenly when the dolphins kind of arrived, the dolphin sensed the panic in him, and kind of he calmed down quite quickly. And we had other children with us from the age of 7 to I think 15, and they also had similar experiences. Of course, my wife was pregnant with our second son, had completely different experiences. This midwife, there was this dolphin who was very attentive, and she could feel the kind of energies exchanged, between her unborn son and the dolphin, and I would say this child even now has you see sometimes some kind of facets of those energies. It's not easy to look at because you've got to really look closely, but it's there. So yeah, they do have a very calming effect, and again, that was part of that dolphin-assisted birth. Dolphin-assisted. Then his birth in when we came back home was very easy. Was very calm. It was underwater. I think he was underwater after his birth for 2 or 3 minutes before we gently took him out, and then he started breathing. So it was a transition from water to water. And those who have been had water births, you'll know that leaving the child there more than a few seconds is generally not done. And this young lad was there for a couple of minutes, and that's again all because of the kind of special energy that the dolphins have, which enable them to have pockets of release, and that's why I always say, once you're connected, you're always connected. There's pockets of release coming out all the time. We had so many other experiences, and all relating to this calming energy, but this playful calming energy. It's always playful. It's always, and I think these two things go hand in hand. Helen, you were talking about calming and unstressful, and I would add to it, trust is, again, all these things are, you trust, you're calm, you're rested. You've got the same energy from the dolphins. It's exactly the same thing. And if you're playful, it's the same thing. All your stress goes away. Maybe not necessarily you're happy, because again, I think happy is a different kind of word, but playfulness and joy come from within, deep within. And you don't have to always, one doesn't have to always be laughing or joking or being the center of attraction by this bonhomie. It could just be a sense of inner joy, and that's what they transmit.
Wow. Beautiful.
Oh, Phoenix, that's so precious. Everything that you've shared with us today is
Feel that in you as well.
Yeah,
Phoenix,
yes. Yeah, all of those energies that you've described, the dolphins, is actually in your energy. So yeah, that's what we sense when we're tuning in with you and reading your energies. Even in the way that you communicate, it is almost like that playful dolphin energy, even with your words, the resonance in your words, and that soothing as well, because that was the energy that we got in here as well, is this very soothing energy.
Yeah, I think it's how can one explain it? One calls one's dolphin within, to yourself.
I like that.
Yeah, and then you say, here you go, here you go, just help me out here, They kind of, it's like a walk-in. I don't know if you're familiar with a walk-in, but
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar with a walk-in? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like a walk-in, you get your dolphin to walk into you, and then you become one, more or less. And I try and bring out lots of this. Yeah, so yeah, I kind of try to bring this analogy, like, the dolphin. Sometimes I use a dolphin walk-in, and
Cool.
and it kind of accompanies me. If one can say that.
Would you like a little treat after we finished recording? Would you actually like a connection while they're in the room here? I'm happy to do.
Yes, of course, I'd love it.
Channeling for you, and
lovely.
As a gift for your very precious time, your wisdom.
Thank you very much. I'd love that.
Your wonderful energies. But is there anything you'd like to say before we close today's conversations?
Well, I'd like to say to those who are listening to, possibly just listen to this with an open mind and reflect on it. And I'm sure that even the little things sometimes make a big difference, and even if you can go away with one little point that you've heard in half a second, or one flash of energy or light that you've heard just somewhere along the way, already this is going to be an enlightening experience for you.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Definitely.
Thank you. So I'd just like to say to everyone watching or listening is, please check Phoenix out on his podcast. It's called A Gentle Squeeze, and it's on Spotify, Google Play, and Apple. And just check out the conversations, because we've really put Phoenix in the hot spot today, because he's so used to being in the host's seat. But now we've been asking him, we wanted to, we've had conversations like you've just heard today with us now, off a screen, and they go way beyond that. So we're like, please, we want to invite you back again, Phoenix, if that sits well with you.
Definitely.
But may we just say thank you for your time and just being and sharing with us.
Thank you. We can see in you such an amazing healer. And I would love to hear more about your your spiritual healing that you do. But I can see that you emanate your healing wherever you go, whoever you're with your dolphin energy and connection.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here and have a chat with you all. So I hope it goes on and we meet next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phoenix.
Thank you, Phoenix.
Thank you very much.